So the story goes that I'll share. It's FBI, and this comes from the New York Times.
Right.
So FBI director makes rare visit to Africa as terrorism threat grows. The Islamic State and Al-Qaeda considers Africa a very fertile ground, says Christopher Wray, who is meeting with officials in Nigeria and Kenya. Oh, the story goes. He met with officials in Kenya and Nigeria, repeated his warning that the United States and its allies worldwide are operating in a heightened threat environment that has been energized by the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. The main reason for my visit to both countries was to raise awareness about the threat on the continent that has serious implications for the United States homeland, but that does not get the attention they deserve, Mr. Wray says in a telephone interview from Nigeria on Friday. For several years now, a group like ISIS, like Al-Qaeda, has considered Africa a very fertile ground. And then he goes into whatever. Somalia has, I'm not even going to read that. At the same time, groups in West Africa has declared allegiance to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic States are on the march. Military coups, and this is the key part, military coups have toppled civilian-led governments in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The new leaders have ordered US and French troops to leave, and in some cases invited Russian mercenaries to take their place. What say you?
Okay, so that article, obviously it's a complete, nonsense. Because first of all, it's very sad. But I hope that in the course of our analysis and critique, our viewers become better at understanding what is being said in corporate media. And of course, the biggest lesson is that what is being written is not what is actually the story, right?
Correct.
Often it is a mask for the story. So I believe there's a part toward the end referring to the reason as to why these groups, armed groups, are attracting supporters. Right?
Okay, so yes. So this is the part here. At the same time, groups have declared their support. Obviously, as a result, where is it? Yes. The discussion in Kenya and Nigeria between US and African officials, Mr. Wray, centered on overlapping interests and ways to fight the common threats. Countering threats posed by groups like Al-Shabaab is certainly more than one agency or one government can tackle. The first by an FBI agent reflects the White House determination to deepen relations with East African nations, even as other countries, including Russia and China, are racing to do the same. That's the part you wanted.
Okay. No, there's another part that refers to social issues. And that is the reason why they're attracted to these organizations.
Yeah. When you look at the region, the West African region more broadly, we remain concerned about instability and how they could have an impact on terrorist groups' ability to exploit that situation, said Mr. Wray.
Precisely. And I think further down, even in that same section, it refers to social issues.
Beyond the threat to Westerners and other interests in Africa, we are vigilant to the possibility their plans and intentions can shift at any point. So while, yes, there are foreign threats, people in the United States should think of them as issues that are shouldn't think of them as an issues that are world away.
Right. So basically, what the article does is burying the lead, right? And the story should have been, but then it would defeat the whole purpose of the visit.
Yes,
of the FBI director, because the story is actually
this is what we want you to do.
The collapse of their economies, right? The collapse of the economies, the neglect by the governments because they're not able to survive, to provide, and that is the reason why young people are joining these armed groups. But then, if that is the case, then an alert reader would say, wait, so if that is the problem, is that something that the FBI director can address? Or is that an issue better discussed with the president of the World Bank and the managing director of the IMF and the executive director of the World Trade Organization? Should not be the discussion? So instead of doing that story, we go around about to justify hundreds of words about the visit by the FBI guy, when we know that the visit is to co-opt the intelligence services in Nigeria and in Kenya, and to work closely with the FBI. But you cannot write it that way, because the citizens in Kenya and in Nigeria would be outraged. They would say, wait a minute, this is colonialism. Why are you doing this? Why are you basically setting us up as branches of the FBI? In fact, they tell you explicitly.
Neo-colonial states.
They tell you explicitly. They say in Kenya, they set up a similar type of task force. It's in the article. But the way it's written, you might miss it. But they're telling you, read very carefully, they're telling you that we're coming here. This is why the director is coming here. They told you that the Kenyan president was recently at the White House for a state dinner. And so you can translate it, the article very, very, very easily. The Kenyan president, Ruto, came to the White House. He was feted by President Biden. He was given a state dinner. And after that, he agreed to basically allow Kenya's intelligence services to become a branch of the FBI, and so on and so forth. I'm not so familiar with how it occurred in the case of Nigeria, but it would translate to the same thing I just said about Kenya. But obviously, you cannot write an article like that, because it would generate a lot of outrage.
And yes, the fallout of his visit is still reverberating around across the.
And then there's another part that you read. And please, listeners, always when you're reading these Western media, when you're listening, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's on BBC radio, whether it's on TV, listen very carefully so that you are not deceived. So we are told that military coups led to toppling civilian-led governments.
Governments, yeah.
Instead of what? Instead of democratic governments.
Governments, yeah.
Because now they're realizing that way, it's really hard to sell that lie. Just because they're a civilian or dressed in suits, it did not mean they were democratic at all. So if they're not democratic, what really is the difference between them and the military? As Walter Rodney once said, we tend to tolerate authoritarianism in our African countries and politics. Authoritarianism by civilians. But when it comes to authoritarianism, who is better at it? Is it not the military?
Yeah, because of the direct chain of command. Yeah.
Yeah, right? So obviously, they write civilian-led governments to deceive you into translating that into democratic governments. But they're not really deceiving you. They're deceiving you by omission. They're allowing you to deceive yourself. You see? So listen, okay, why did they not say democratic? Because they know many of those governments the leadership could wear suits and ties, but they are authoritarian.
I mean, we've just talked about one, Kagame.
Absolutely. You see?
Is a civilian, but is he democratic?
Right. He's a civilian technically, but in essence, he's a military general.
Yoweri Museveni,
Same thing.
is he democratic? So,
Absolutely. So,
that is...
Yeah, it's very easy. Once you've deconstructed about 10 of their corporate media spins, then it becomes a template to deconstruct everything. And I wish we had a class in deconstructing Western propaganda in all of our schools in Africa, because we would end up producing better citizens,